guys tell me if it's streaming. In the meantime, I'll play a countdown so nobody thinks they miss anything. All right.
District, here he goes, crossing himself. Oh! He's done. Are we indeed live?
You kind of caught me off guard here. Okay. Now, thank you, Lord. Let me pray. Very simple. It takes a lot of money to do that. Oh, yeah. Well, for example, that's really none of your business. But, hey, you listening to me? Let me give you another example. And I prayed about it, and I thought, back when, and I might add another thing, too. It's a misunderstanding. I'm talking about the Bible. God, I get excited talking about it because I love it. I had to learn this, the demons. Abraham was very, very well. I learned it from him, from the Bible.
There's a foundation in the Bible.
Wait a minute now. The blessing of Abraham. Abraham was extremely wealthy, and he had covenant with God. I'm talking about the Bible. Oh, God, I love this. And I started out standing. My grandfathers. I love the people. Those are the demons. And I understand that. And I love them with all my heart. If you go into the old covenant, and it's full of meanness, it's just full of hell on earth. He made that airplane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but buy it. I love your eyes. Face to face, personally. Just the same as Jesus is very real devil. Rulers of the darkness of this world. God bless, Father bless. But it's a biblical thing. It's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people. And it's full of miracles and signs and wonders. It's full of unseen things. Jesus, people, I love people. Dragging some woman down an aisle, it made me so mad, I wanted to punch the guy out myself. We wrestle not with people. And I have a lot of natural gas.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Hot Program. You said we're not live?
Not live on YouTube.
I'm seeing us live on YouTube right now.
You are not. You only think you are. I have it on my iPad.
So weird.
In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, right, Rebekah? We are not live on YouTube.
We promise you.
This is nothing we joke about. That's for sure. Nothing.
All right, I could fire up the old OBS machine, and we could do it that way. That's been working for us.
Randy says live now. I don't see it.
Really?
I don't see it.
Okay, maybe
you might have to refresh
but
it.
like I said, maybe
we have 11
we're on,
viewers. We have the most viewers. It says we have the most viewers we've had. So it'd be
See,
interesting.
mine says 5 waiting. Now mine says
You know
4
what?
waiting. Maybe we're
Okay,
on
so-
a different link.
Yeah, I fired up
Rebekah,
other channels as a backup, but it's
on the right side-
program.
So
Yeah.
on the right side of my screen, it showed another window for Hot Program. So I clicked on
Okay.
that, and then it's live.
Okay.
Yeah, it says we are live on Hot Program.
It would be
Okay.
playing Kenneth Copeland still.
It's all right, guys. We're just making sure our stream is not a timeless, spaceless, immaterial being. And
Okay, let me
once that's firmly
silence
established,
that.
So this other place where there's people waiting, it's still not live. But now there's only 3 waiting. So
I don't know where
think-
where would they be? They should go to Hot Program. Let's type in go to Hot Program. They should
Okay,
be on
I'm
the
gonna
Hot Program
delete
channel.
that. If you guys, I'm just gonna go. Yeah, I see here we have 6 watching. So let me change the link. I'm gonna send this link to the people who are waiting.
Okay. Yeah,
On the
maybe you
other
sent
one.
the link to the video and it changed the link to the video.
It
I tried to send
changed
you
the
the link
link
to the
because
channel.
of Restream. Yeah. Well, no, Restream changed the link. This has happened to me before with OBS. So,
I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna change the link. Let's see.
We can put people on the moon.
All right, we're good though. We've got 14 people watching. Guys, welcome to Hot Program.
Wow,
I'm
cool.
of course your host with the most from the East Coast, and I am in airplane mode. I am joined by a man who thinks you should have at least one revelation. At least one revelation each time you read the book of Revelation. A man who needs no introduction, and a very special guest who I owe a gazillion pocket change the next time she comes through one of my live streams, because she's actually the person who alerted us to our technical difficulties. Not only that, we have been obsessed with getting her, obsessed since day one. It was like, so you want to do a show? Right, yeah. And we're going to get Rebekah, right? And we're going to try to get Rebekah, right? So folks, we'd like to welcome Rebekah Davis. Yes, welcome to the program. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us.
I'm going to turn it over, my one black friend. Go ahead and get started.
Okay. Rebekah, first of all, thank you for being here. Secondly,
Yes.
where is your accent from?
Well, like I told you, I really don't have it. Like people always keep telling me like you have an accent from Minnesota. I've never been to Minnesota. So I really don't know. Give me 1 second, guys. There's people waiting over here, and let me tell them that we are live at this link.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Do you have it set up? I don't know if they can see live at.
Yeah, I was trying to, I should drop the link for the channel. That way it should, be a little bit easier to find our stuff.
Well, you can catch Rebekah's channel, the Bread of Life channel, and we'll have her talk with us a little bit more about that. So if you'd like to see more of her, you can there. I've been lucky enough to tune in to several streams, and I was working when you were talking to S.J. Thomason the other day, but I wanted to reach out.
Thank you, guys. There's people waiting at the other link, but I can't. It won't. The link isn't when I post it. Okay, did you post it?
Yeah, I posted it. I posted it here in the chat. I posted it in
good.
I posted it on the screen. I'll put it also in the private chat.
Wait, it's
sorry
on.
about that.
No, it's
Go ahead.
on the other. Let me just say, click on program.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to do, is get them the link to the channel. That way they can go there, and it should pop up either on the home page or under videos.
Randy says, KCA Randy says, I miss SJ. How did that go? Rebekah, you want to comment on that? How your collaboration with SJ went?
It went great. You know, SJ is, she's a wonderful lady. And, you know, I love connecting with female ministers. And, you know, it's just kind of rare for women to be on YouTube like this, you know, talking about this kind of stuff. So I appreciate those who are.
Well, it was interesting to see there were some philosophical disagreements there, and I really admired the way that you respectfully challenged her. I thought that was just great, and I'm like, this Rebekah is really someone special. I appreciate your approach. I try to be the same way when I disagree with someone. Offer non-destructive commentary and non-destructive challenges to you know, maybe things they do or say that I don't necessarily agree with, or even if I'm offering and I think you've done this, a gentle rebuke, just gentle, because it can be done that way, so the person doesn't feel slighted at all. So I think, well done, Rebekah.
Thank you. So I can expect gentle rebukes from you today?
But not Pocketlocker. Me, yes, of course. Him, no. No, he will most likely give you the same courtesy, because it is exactly that, courtesy. And I think with the internet could do with a bit more courtesy and a bit less nastiness. I think we've all seen our fill of the nastiness that's out there, that's been volunteered left and right by so many people. I don't think it's necessary for us to beat each other up. I don't think we get anywhere doing that. I think that actually is holding us back from the progress we desperately need. So,
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us, well, I think he always wants to ask about the verses. So do you want to do that to get started?
Yes. So what are some of your, maybe 3 of your favorite Bible verses? And then as a follow-up, how would you say your Christianity, what in the Bible sort of speaks to your Christianity? Certainly Christianity, like a diamond, is a many-faceted thing. And I would say, how does the light shine through you, if you will?
I love that question. Thank you. And there are some passages that I would kind of say are, you know, particularly important to me. So this is a good question. So one of them is Romans 5:19, and it's actually like inscribed on my wedding ring, because this is an important verse for both me and my husband. Mm-hmm. It's, for just as through the disobedience of the one man, the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the one man, the many will be made righteous. So the reason this is such an important verse for me is because it's the beauty of the plan of salvation that, you know, look, I ended up a sinner through no fault of my own, right? I didn't ask for this state, this condition. And just in the same way that I ended up in this condition through the sin of, you know, Adam and Eve, so also through the righteous obedience of Christ, I am made righteous. So I love that. And that is actually the reason it's important to my husband, is that he didn't grow up in a Christian home. He read the Bible in college, and he was an atheist. So he wasn't a strong atheist. He just, you know, kind of was like not, he didn't believe in God, but when he read the Bible in college, it was the book of Romans and the book of First Corinthians that really spoke to him. And it was this concept of salvation, that of, you know, the like beautiful symmetry of it, that caused him to say, you know what, I don't know if there's a God, but if there is, this is his story. And so, yeah, that was his, that was kind of like his entry point. He grabbed onto this idea and he said, wow, this is like, if there is a God, this is how he would have done it. This is the way. And so he loved that. And it's been important for me. There was about a 10-year period when I feared being rejected by God. And my husband would always get out Romans chapter 5 and read he'd be like, are we going to do this again? I was like I had covers up to my, chin in bed, and I just don't want God to reject me. And my husband would be like, oh, I can't believe we're doing this again. You're a Christian and you don't believe the one thing that Christians are supposed to believe, that you're saved. And so he would be, here we go, Romans chapter 5. And he would read Romans chapter 5. And then I would, be reassured. So that's why that passage is significant for me.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good thing to be renewed in your values. And it's even nicer to have someone there to go, hey, you've not forgotten who you are. I'm here to remind you. That's a wonderful thing. Okay, so do you have two more?
Yep, I do.
I'll take them both if you have two.
All right. Yeah. Now, this one might seem a little strange. Like, I'm almost sure that no one else will choose this as their favorite verse. But for me, it's been one that God has spoken over and over again to me. And it just has so much power for me. So it's Galatians chapter 4, verse 30. And it says, get rid of the slave woman and her son, for the slave woman's son will never share in the inheritance with the free woman's son. And the reason this is powerful for me is because for so long, I was living as if I was not a child of God. I was living as if I had to slave away for God, right? And I was never sure of my place, in God's family. So I was working my butt off for God, but I never felt like I was doing enough. And, God finally broke through to me with this verse and I just felt him speak this verse to me so strongly, like, get rid of that slave woman. Like, basically the way that I was thinking about myself, right? Get rid of that. She will never share. So the way that I was thinking about my service for God was totally wrong. And that, like, that type of thinking is never going to be the way that God works. No, it's and the whole context of this passage. So you really need to read the full context.
I was going to ask, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
can you repeat I want to pull it up.
Yeah. Galatians chapter 4, verse 30. So the whole context is very much what I'm talking about. Okay. So, remember when Abraham, he was waiting for God to give him a child, right? And for years, God had promised that he was going to give him a son. But it was taken quite a long time for that promise to come. And remember, Sarah said, hey, go and, take my slave Hagar and have a child with her. And so she did. And so then so basically, remember that Sarah ended up kicking Hagar to the curb because Hagar was making fun of her son and blah. Eventually Sarah had a child. But anyway, basically, in Galatians chapter 4, verse 22, it says, for it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the slave woman and the other by the free woman. His son by the slave woman was born according to the flesh, but his son by the free woman was born as a result of the divine promise. These things are to be taken figuratively. The women represent two covenants. One covenant is from Mount Sinai and bears children who are to be slaves. This is Hagar. Now, Hagar stands for Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present city of Jerusalem because she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem that is above is free, and she is our mother. Okay, so let me skip a little bit because I don't want to get too long, right? Again, I'm already almost there, so let me just keep going. For it is written,
Okay.
"Be glad, barren woman, you who never bore a child, shout and cry aloud, shout for joy and cry aloud, you who were never in labor, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband." Now,
I
you
think she's
brothers and
breaking
sisters,
up on us.
Yeah, I hear
Like
that. I hear that too.
Isaac, Scripture say, "Get of the
Rebekah,
slave woman and her son will never share in the inheritance with the free woman's son. Therefore, sisters, we are not children of the slave woman, but of the free woman." So the context is that, look, when God makes you a promise, it's by his promise that you receive the inheritance, the blessing, right? Abraham tried in his own flesh, he tried to make God's promise come true. He tried with human effort to make the child of the promise come about. And that's what I was doing as, you know, a Christian. I was trying to basically earn what was already promised to me. And so when God spoke this to me, it was like, dude, you have got to get rid of that mentality. That is like the wrong way to approach me. I've already promised you the inheritance. I've already promised you salvation, and you're still acting as if you're a slave when you are, you're a child of the free woman. So anyway,
Can I jump on this real
Sure.
quick? So what we learn from the story of Hagar is set free with her son Ishmael.
Yep.
She's set free. And hold on, that's in Genesis 21, chapter 21, that it talks about it. And it says, I'm going to just skip a bunch. After some time, when all their drinking water was gone, Hagar put her son under a bush. Then she walked a short distance away and sat down. She thought her son would die because there was no water. She did not want to watch him die. She sat there and began to cry. God heard the boy crying, and God's angel called to Hagar from heaven. He said, "What is wrong, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying there. God will help the boy. Hold his hand and lead him. I will make him the father of many people." So that's God telling Hagar she's going to bless the son.
Yep.
Okay? Then God allowed Hagar to see a well of water. So she went to the well and filled her bag with water. Then she gave water to the boy to drink. God continued to be with the boy while he grew up. Ishmael lived in the desert and became a mighty hunter. He learned to shoot a bow very well. Sounds like he learned to shoot an arrow very well. But so I don't know. I guess maybe this brings balance to the force in a manner of speaking. Now, I doubt that whoever wrote the First Corinthians and Galatians, rather, they can't get to everything. You can't talk about everything, otherwise they'd still be writing today. But often I find one scripture is a target-rich environment, to continue with the archery terms, for I would say wisdom, learning, allegory, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and definitely, the verse that spoke to me in Galatians, it's nothing personal against the Hagar and Ishmael, right? Like you read, God blessed them, right? But the point of the taking the symbolism the point about the human effort.
Rebekah, can you try turning off your camera for a second? Sometimes that helps it sort of reset.
I'm going out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're going in and out. It's not you. I'm sure it's restreamed.
Okay.
And please restate your point. Please restate your point. We want to know
Yes, please.
what your thoughts are.
Okay. So what I was saying is, yeah, this was nothing personal against Hagar and Ishmael. God blessed them, and you read the passage where God is blessing them, and so, but the point that is being pulled from to make, to illustrate what's going on in Galatians, the point is that Abraham tried by human effort to bring about the promises of God. God promised him a child, and Abraham didn't see it at first, so he tried to bring it about himself, right? But and so this was the point that Galatians is making. Don't try in your human effort to make God's promises come true. Like, it's not by human effort that these things have that the promises are yours. It's by a gift from God. It's by what God has promised that will come to pass. So that's what I needed to hear at that time, because I was trying my best to earn God's favor and earn my place in his kingdom.
Yeah, I feel like I can't help but comment on the struggle there. And I feel like especially people who are maybe non-believers and haven't been in community with believers for a long time, or people who never were part of churches or never believed, that there's a difference between holding some idea in your mind and believing in that thing, and the sort of life and the intricacies that come with actually struggling to serve God day in and day out, and feel the need to get better and to never feel content, right? Because you're always, even if you're not sinning and you're feeling good about not sinning, you're oh my man, am I boasting in my not sinning? That's bad juju right there, And it's just really great to hear somebody talk about that. Our guest last week talked about playing on the worship team, and I really connected with him about the lifestyle of preparing those songs week in and week out. And I love talking to my church friends about the walk in their faith and their actual lifestyle as Christians, and I just hear that coming out as an important verse that spoke to you. I think that's great. Do you want to tell us, and I'll pull up the third one?
Yeah, the third one is one that's I think it's probably a favorite of many. I don't know. It's Mark 2:17. It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. So I love this one.
Yeah.
Because this is when Jesus is hanging out with sinners, and the religious people are like, why are you hanging out with the sinners? And Jesus was like, well, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, right? So I came for the sick people. And for me, that's good news. Because, in the times when I've struggled with, I'm not as righteous as I should be, this is encouraged me that, well, if I was, I'm not the one Jesus came for, right? And I think this kind of actually, this is also an answer. I feel like this is, I'm an evangelist, so I share the gospel, and I've noticed that the number one thing, when the gospel, I love the moment when somebody first gets the gospel, when they first understand it, and they're like, wow, and I've noticed that the first question that often comes to people's mind is, what about all the people who haven't heard this, right? And often it'll be phrased as what about all the good people who haven't heard this message, right? And now, I'm an inclusivist, meaning I don't think people have to hear the message in order to be saved by Jesus. I think it's much better for them if they do hear the message, right? I believe the message is extremely important. It's life-changing. But I believe I'm an inclusivist, meaning I think Jesus can save people who haven't heard the message.
Can
But
you just quickly maybe distinguish that or not from a universalist?
yeah, I'm not a universalist. I don't think everyone's
what's
gonna
the
be saved.
difference? Because I don't know. The terms. I don't know those terms.
Okay, an inclusivist is someone who believes that Jesus is the only way to salvation. Okay, so we are like orthodox in that sense of, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by him. But that, we make a distinction that, hey, it's not our knowledge that saves. It's Jesus himself who saves, right? And
Okay.
he can extend his salvation to anyone he wants, right? It doesn't have to be someone who directly heard the message and confessed Jesus as Lord and put their trust in him. Like he can see people all over the world. He knows their hearts. He knows who wants to be part of his kingdom, and he can extend that salvation to anyone. And so, I believe that many people who've never heard the gospel, and some of them who have heard about Jesus but have not accepted them because of cultural barriers, religious barriers, I believe that they can be saved.
Okay. So just by power of his will, his choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I was just gonna quickly say too that I don't find that passage quoted a lot. And when I in my head go to the gospel, I go to like the go and make disciples of nations. But this one I feel like gets right at it too. And it's also interesting because I feel like the passage isn't quoted a lot, but the context is quoted a lot. Like people are fond of saying, oh, Jesus hung out with the sinners and the tax collectors. And so I scrolled up and I'm like, oh, so people like to quote this context, but maybe not that passage. And it was very interesting. Go ahead, my one black friend. Sorry.
Rebekah, how would you define righteousness?
Well, the Old Testament describes righteous people, right? I would say righteous people are honest. They don't cheat people. They, they're grateful to God. They are, as they understand him. They may not have perfect knowledge of God, but they're grateful to the source of their life. They, they don't love violence. They're not out for violence. They're, there's a list of things that the Bible talks about as the traits of a righteous person. Now, that doesn't mean that they are completely without sin. So, Jesus came to perfect us, to make us holy, and to give us true righteousness, which is sinlessness, right? We will see the fullness of that on, when, at the resurrection and God's kingdom. We may not see the fullness of it right now, but we have been promised a complete righteousness. But I think what a lot of times Christians, especially Protestant Christians, they really focus on righteousness as perfection, when that's not actually what is the consistent message of the entire Bible. There's many people who sin in the Bible who are still called righteous people by God.
Okay. Well, Noah is a great example of that.
Yes.
So then, just continuing in that vein, you did a fair job of describing me, except for the whole believing in God, faithful to God part, because of course that's out the window. I'm an atheist. I don't even, and you, full disclosure, a Christ mythicist. A
Jesus mythicist. Or both mythicists.
Fine. Yeah, I'm a mythicist of both. You're not getting. I would say you didn't have either, and you're getting neither. So that's my perspective. After careful study, years of it, that's the conclusion I've come to. But what about a person like me? What does God do with someone like me? I'm generous with donating my salary. I'm very kind and helpful to.
Attest to
You can
that.
attest to that. Lots of people can. But I go out of my way to be there and help people, the people on my staff when they need something. I take time to teach them, and often that causes me to end up working very late. I just try to be as helpful to others as I possibly can be, to my own hurt at times. When it came time for me to buy a house, I didn't have the money because I'd given it away. I'd given away
that's
more
awesome.
than I gave away more than my down payment was when I finally did get a house the next year. Like, I gave away twice as much as my down payment was.
Yeah, we're watching the chat, guys. We'll go back and get questions for her.
When a man came to Jesus and he said, "What do I need to do to get eternal life?" Jesus said, "You know the commands. Don't murder, don't commit adultery." Basically, he listed off the commands, right? And the guy was like, "All these I've kept."
All these I've kept.
But anyway, well, actually, there's two stories, so I might be conflating them. But the result was, in one story was Jesus told the guy to sell his stuff, but the result in one of the other account, Jesus said, "Do this." When the guy said, now I got it. So he said, "I have kept since I was a child," and Jesus said, like, "Do this and you will live," or something. Oh no, wait. Okay, I'm so sorry.
Sell all you have and give it to the poor.
Wait, yeah, okay, that came later, but that Jesus didn't tell him he had to do that to have eternal life. He said, if you want to be perfect, go sell all your stuff, right? But actually, Jesus said, "You know the commands, do these and you'll live." So what I will tell you is, I can't give you an assurance, because I can tell you that anyone who trusts in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ will be saved. But I can tell you that, if you are living a righteous life, right? Then, like, that's what Jesus said. He said, "Do these things and you'll live," right? But one of those commands was, "Have no other gods before me." So, I don't. I guess my well,
I took that very seriously.
Well, now let me ask you this: if it turned out that you were wrong, and Jesus is the king, would you be okay with him being king?
I would, Rebekah, but if you knew me well, you would already predict what was going to come out of my mouth next, which would be, I have some management tweaks for Jesus. Quite a few suggestions, because I don't think he's running the show very well. I think he does. I would criticize him for being extremely lazy, a terrible listener, not really wanting the job that he has. I would say, for a perfectionist, he just is not really interested in being King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The fact that we have a society here in the United States where someone wants to force me to share in their values, where I clearly should have a choice. Is it opposite day? We're supposed to be free people. So I don't want to murder anybody. I don't want to steal your things. But also, like, my body is mine. And you can advise me not to sin, but should you be able to force me not to do what I don't want to? things I want to do?
When has Jesus ever forced you not to do
something? No. Well, I don't believe Jesus forced anything. I think he's a guy in a storybook. You and I could have some talks, I'll tell you. Like,
but I guess he's saying, I guess he's asking, where would the source of the force come from?
Other Christians that think they're doing his will.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I'm kind of
right.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it manifesting.
Now, I'll be honest. I think a lot of times, and I'm gonna phrase Jesus like he was a real guy. Okay. I think a lot of times Jesus is being perfectly clear, and I think often in our modern times, in ancient times, and even by other authors in the Bible, what Jesus is asking for, what he is stating, is being misunderstood left and right, because people found a way to use what Jesus is saying as a stick to, well, let me get my ruler, because then I'll appear like a teacher, as something to beat other people with, when that is never the purpose, nor is it necessary.
Yeah.
You
well,
know,
it
and
sounds
then I'll
like
say,
you know
go ahead.
something, right? It sounds like you know
I know
something.
many things.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I think a lot of times, Rebekah, people unfairly use Jesus as a doormat. Jesus would not Jesus might mistake me for a Christian before he would mistake them for one, because of their value systems, the way that they cling to things. I have where is it? Did I take it off my lamp? I'll share this with you that I wrote. It says, before you can slip out of those shackles, you must first unclench your fists. The strength you gained as a fighter will need to relax into open hands. After all, your clenched fists were holding on to nothing. So I think a lot of the people in our society that are fighting for something, when I hear Christians be told again and again they are fighting, you have to fight for this, fight for that, then they become a mentality where, well, I wouldn't have to fight a friend, so these outside people who don't share my beliefs, well, they must be enemies. And then they start to treat their own people in their society like that. They're being told to. Even Jesus, and I'd correct him if I could see him to his face. Look, just because I'm not with you doesn't mean I'm against you. If you're trying to get people to be kinder, nicer, sweeter, happier, I'm all for that. I'll help you. I'll gladly help you if I agree with your methods. But just because I don't think that a person who isn't on board fully with you, Jesus, should go to hell, I don't need you to give me an express ticket, thinking, well, you're awful because you don't believe what I tell people to believe. And I mean, I'll be honest, I think Jesus in the Bible and Paul, I think they I've said this before on Hot Program, they set the bar really low. You have to follow a few things and basically believe, and you're in. You're in, baby. The disciples are there. Oh, welcome. I see you have a ticket. We have you on our OnlyFans list in the Book of Life. You can come right in and enter now into the joy. Come on in. We have wonderful things prepared for you. There's punch and pie. That sort of thing. I get it. All right. But again, I think in our am I talking too long?
No.
Okay. I think people can go about things in a way that is restraining to others and doesn't allow them to have the freedom that they should. So.
I want you guys to actually continue this conversation. I just kind of want to catch up with some of the questions from the chat. So let's, Rebekah, if you can, just try to answer these as quickly as you can, and if I have to respond, I will too. And I just want to put that out there so that people understand that the brevity isn't you. I'm just asking for that so we can get through more questions, because I appreciate all the questions in the chat. So, question quickly: why do you fear God, and is it healthy for a child to fear God?
I think some people need to fear God, but some people shouldn't fear God. So, Proverbs says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Okay, but that doesn't mean God wants you to stay in fear. It's a good place to start. I think everyone should recognize that there's a creator of this world and you're not him. And so it's a good thing to recognize the kind of power that you're dealing with and the mind and the, what's going on with reality. So fear is a good place to start. But, 1 John says there is no fear in love, and perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. Those who fear have not been made perfect in love. So I think once you know Jesus Christ and you know the love of God and you know that you're a saved person, then fear should no longer be a driving force for you. You should not fear God, because You've been saved, you've been cleansed, you have a promise from God that you are part of his kingdom, that you're an inheritor. So fear you shouldn't fear like being punished by God. He's not, he's not out to get you. So there should be no fear for a child of God. But for those who are on the outside, there should be some fear.
When I was a Christian, I felt that way too, and I felt like I was totally in God's family. And when I heard about that, it was sort of like, oh, fear of the mean old man. But like, if you really get to know him, he's just like a sweet, doting father. And I feel that way sometimes with my teaching mentor. Like he's really, like he sets the bar really high for our students. So they think he's like super strict and like difficult. And I'm like, oh no, that's the dude who like hosts barbecues and is like the sweetest, mentor ever. And then beyond that, I also felt that that term fear was just kind of misinterpreted, that there was like a healthy fear. Like if we were married, I would have like this healthy fear of like, oh, I don't want to like slip up because I don't want her to be disappointed with me, or like I want to make sure I keep the fridge organized a certain way because like if it gets a certain way, she gets frustrated, right? And it's not like I'm scared she's gonna hurt me or be mean to me. It's just like this, fear is a kind of simple way of expressing like a certain kind of respect, you might call it, right? And so listening charitably, like that's just how I took it. So I agree with you. Like that interpretation makes a lot of sense to me, actually. Personal questions I'm gonna definitely leave out because I don't like being asked personal questions on air. If you know like that, you can ask. No, I just won't. What about God poisoning David's baby and letting it suffer for 7 days before it died? I don't know.
I'll answer that one, but there was another one you put up on the screen that I wanted to answer because I think it was Scott said, what about the other promises of God that haven't been fulfilled? I'm not sure which promises that he's referring to, but, the book of Hebrews tells us that there were people of God who lived out their lives and they never received what was promised. But that, this happened that together with us, that these things may be fulfilled. So it's not that God's promises have failed, but there are times when God's promises, we will not see them in this lifetime, but we can trust that he will fulfill them. Like he hasn't forgotten his promises.
Also, what about all the fulfilled promises that are unrecorded? And then also, again, I think there's value just to promise. Like, if you would ask me as a Christian, like if I got sick with like cancer, and you would ask me like, do I have hope in the promise of a cure? I'd be like, yeah. And you'd be like, well, do you really think they're going to cure it before you? I'd be like, I don't know, but there's something to me in the promise of that, right? Like the very idea that, I don't know, maybe there will be a miraculous cure tomorrow, and I'll sign up for the trial, and that certainly has some value to me living through this. That not having any hope is just like, not preferable. So like, again, this is the thing that when I was a Christian, I wrestled with these same issues and I didn't really find it too troubling, right? Like I just was like, oh yeah, people don't always understand the value of promise the way I read it.
But Jay, may you be healed in Jesus' name. Scott says, but now Scott answered my question. He said, God promised Christians would do greater miracles than Jesus. When did that happen? Scott, that is happening right now. And there are Christians who have raised more people from the dead than Jesus did. There are Christians who have healed thousands more people than Jesus did. And that promise is good right now for anyone who believes. God is a God of miracles. He has not changed, and he is working in this world right now. There's no shortage of God's miracles, but you know what God needs for miracles? He needs miracle workers. He needs people who are willing to be the person. If you look at every miracle in the Bible, God doesn't just pop off and do miracles. He does miracles through people. Moses raised up his staff and the Red Sea parted. Elijah laid on the widow's son and he was raised from the dead. God does miracles through people. So You have to sign up to be a miracle worker if you want to see the miracles of God here and now.
And that's another example of the undocumented promises. Go ahead, my one black friend.
My mother's been in a wheelchair for almost 20 years. She's been a Christian pretty much her entire adult life and part of her childhood.
Yeah.
Okay, so she had a doctor. They did a surgery on one knee and it screwed it up very badly. Another doctor did a surgery on the other knee and it screwed that up too. So why can't God, because she's prayed for this to be healed, she's had people in the church get involved, she's still in that chair. I go visit her and I'm saying 1 foot
in Jesus' name.
Believe
May
me,
she be
that's
healed in
been
Jesus'
requested.
name. And I know. But let me tell you this one, my one black friend. And I'm just having so much fun with your name here.
That's why I'm here.
But have you heard of Delia Knox? Okay.
No. How's that spelled?
Delia Knox is a Christian. Look it up later. I'll send you the name later. Delia Knox.
Thank you.
She was a Christian, okay, who was in a wheelchair, paralyzed for 23 years. Okay. She cried out to God for years for healing, and she didn't see it. And she got to the point where she gave up. Like, she did not want anybody to pray for her. She did not want, she basically gave up. But then, some years back, maybe 10 years ago, at a revival service, an evangelist prayed for her and she got up out of her wheelchair. She walked, and she's been walking ever since.
Great. So give me that guy's phone number.
23 years.
So in 3 years, when my mom is almost 90 years old, she's probably going to need a walker, she can give up her wheelchair and walk like the lady you just referred to.
Well,
you see
I
my point?
Can't promise
So
the timeline. I can't promise the timeline.
Right, but if God were more like me, then okay, I got your request 20 years ago. It's been in the queue. We're going to handle this. And since I have all this power over the universe, I'm going to make this retroactive, okay? So it'll be like I heard you back then, right? And then it's done. But that's not realistic, is it? That's not really the way it works.
It isn't.
I'm assuming I can knock on any Christian's door and ask them a similar question, and they have an example like you, and I can be happy for that lady who she could leave her chair behind and walk on her own. I'm happy for that lady. But I want to be happy for my mother too, that the utility of her legs has returned to her, and they're not just an aesthetic part of her body now that she can't even use beyond getting in and out of her chair, in and out of the shower, on and off of a toilet, right?
Yeah.
We clearly see people who have fully functioning legs and can even be remarkable gymnasts or really fast runners. They have that ability. My mother, I don't think she deserves what happened to her, right? But
she
evidently, her grace, the God's grace is sufficient for her. When you have awful people who are walking around murdering people, shooting them, going into stores or school and shooting them up, why couldn't God put those people in a chair and make it hard for them? But that's not what we see. That's not what we see.
Yeah.
So I would say, isn't it more likely that if God exists, if I grant that God exists, that he's not really interested in my mother basically being a shut-in and unable to go drive and see friends and things like that and see her family, that everybody has to sort of come to her. She can't, when I go to her house, like, you need me to do this for you, do that for you, get this for you, that. She doesn't even get in the car anymore. She used to. But that's where she is now. There would be no justice in a God that treats people worse than he treats my mother, and on that level. And yet, that's what we see. My mother is one example. There are billions more.
Is she a believer?
She sure is.
And so she's still walking. She's still hanging on to the
She's walking
promise.
in the faith figuratively,
She's hanging on to the
but
promise.
she's rolling in the faith in her chair.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Rolling in the faith.
So if she's able to maintain her faith despite being in the chair, I'm sure if she's maintaining the faith, it disturbs her that her son is not in the faith because of her in the chair as one of the reasons, right?
I have amazing comebacks to all challenges from my family about this Jesus stuff.
Seriously,
they don't even want to come here with.
I'm sure they don't. My one black friend. You know what I'm remembering though is that I genuinely, when I was a believer, I felt that like that was just part of God's plan. I felt like I didn't always have answers to these things, but I felt like I didn't. That wasn't necessarily my responsibility, but I also did sort of buy into the idea, like it's part of the reason I didn't like buy into faith healing, because it's
garbage.
Well, yeah, but not necessarily that, but I bought into the idea that sometimes God used suffering, like that sometimes there was this like beautiful story of a person who was dealing with the human condition, the sickness, the death or whatever, and they would be hanging on to their faith. An example being my grandmother. My grandmother got diagnosed with cancer. She survived to this point, but I remember when, we first found out or whatever, and I'm saying the wrong thing. I think it's colon cancer. Okay. And when we first found out, you're worried. I was a lot younger and everything. And I remember that she just kept serving the church, kept serving the community, kept, visiting the other sick people and doing the whole thing. And, obviously she went to the doctor and got the best care she could and all of that too. And I remember just feeling so inspired by that, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying is I was sort of opposed to faith heals because they robbed people of that, like the sort of joy and beauty, again, hanging on to the promise that God would find a way to express in the suffering. And I know that's hard to hear, and when I hear that now as an atheist, I'm like, no, I don't buy into that. But I'm just being honest, I did feel that way when I was a Christian.
Well,
for what it's worth.
And you both can answer this. If there is a God, what does that say about him that he's willing to inflict suffering on people who don't deserve it? Why? For his ego. So what? God can have the glory. Are you serious? If we knew, if we had neighbors or friends that were like that, could we stay friends with them? Is it possible?
I never thought of it as his will that they do all that. Like it was just the condition, right? Like it wasn't him sitting up there being like, I want this person to do that. It was just like this person has the condition, and then as an expression of their free will, they still want to glorify God. I don't know. I'm not saying it makes sense to me now. Clearly, it doesn't make sense to me now. If it did, I'd be a believer. but it made sense to me in a way then that I want to grant charitably to people who might be feeling that way now and say, like, it's not unreasonable to me.
Well, I think this issue, and there are Christians who promote the idea that everything that happens is all for God's glory. I completely disagree with that. And I don't think your mom's sickness is from the Lord. I don't think it is the will of God. But the way that I see it is that God is not in control of this world. There is nothing in the Bible that tells us God is in control of the world. The reality is this is a spiritual battleground. A lot of bad stuff happens that is not God's will. That is why we pray, Father, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because God's will is not always done on the earth. Now, your mom, she may be experiencing this attack from the enemy right now. And you know what? That may continue until, she's in glory with Jesus. But she also could get healed tomorrow. We are in a spiritual battle. We are battling real spiritual forces, powers of wickedness in the heavenly places, and also human evils. And so we don't win every battle, but we know that we have a promise that we have the ultimate victory. But I am not going to say your mom that God wants her to be, in the wheelchair. If that were true, then she'd be in the wheelchair in God's kingdom. But God tells us that there's not going to be any sickness. So
Rebekah, so I appreciate you sharing this actually, because I think this is what I was hoping. Like, this has gone way better than I could ever hoped for, and you're expressing a lot of things about your theology that I definitely didn't know, and so I'm definitely glad we got into that. I want to touch on this question. I just want to say to the chat, a lot of the questions I glossed over. They were great questions. It's just I'm accepting her interpretation of things, and I'm trying to understand how she sees the world, and so a lot of those things we'll revisit, and we're just not going to be able to get to all of the questions, but I want to get to some of the key ones. This is one I think is great, because I think your scripture touched on this, right? That you hang out with the sinners, you hang out with the atheist a lot on your channel, you spend a lot of time with this community. I think that's consistent, right, with that being your favorite scripture. But I guess I want to hear a little bit more about how you got into that, because that's kind of how I discovered you. So how did that whole thing get started, and how do other people in your life, like your family and friends, feel about it?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. Well, it kind of happened by accident, because I started my channel just to share the gospel, and mostly directing it toward my community at that time, which was mostly Muslim and other Christians and stuff like that. Yeah.
I would have never known that. Oh my goodness, that's wild.
I lived 10 years in 3 different Muslim majority countries. And so, primarily I've been sharing the gospel with Muslims up until 2018. We were living in Dubai at that time. I started up my channel, and then almost immediately I was getting a lot of comments from atheists. And so I ended up I took a lot of time to respond to people's comments. Sometimes I would spend 6 hours a day responding to atheist comments.
Wow.
And so,
I
ended up just having long chats, conversations in the comment section that went on for a month, And
yes.
So that's the way it started. And then I ended up asking Nathan Ormond. I connected with Nathan Ormond just on YouTube because I watched his testimony video and liked it. And I contacted him and I said, I loved your testimony. And he said, well, I'm not a Christian anymore. And I was like, what? And then I said, I want to understand that. Do you want to come on my channel? And he came on my channel. And then I just started, other atheists started getting connected with them. And then my audience just over a few month period of time changed to being mostly atheists. And then, I just kept, interviewing the atheists, and then that's how we got here. So I never set out to reach atheists, but
to evangelize to the atheists.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
the great unwashed.
How long have you been at it?
Well, I started my channel in 2018, but it's only been in this past year that all of my Christian audience has basically gone. It's been 1 year ago that I interviewed Nathan Ormond, and then slowly my Christian audience kind of dissipated, and then the atheists I welcomed them, and then people were getting mad because they were like, you're letting the atheists talk too much, you're letting they shouldn't be able to say that, you should delete comments, I'm leaving your channel. And so a lot of the Christians left. But yeah.
Have you come not to save the righteous but sinners?
Yes, here. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You gotta give her props.
Have you done that?
Yeah. So
thanks. Well, that's what I said when the Christians would tell me, why are you letting them talk? You shouldn't let them talk. I'm like, I don't care about the Christians. I really don't. I love my Christian brothers.
They're going to be okay. I think that's
exactly.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
I love my Christian brothers and sisters, but I really don't care if they watch my channel. I wanted to do my channel to reach out to, those who needed to hear the message of salvation. So
that's great. Yeah. I also want to say a little bit about, just if you don't mind, just how I kind of our past, our background. And so it's I came across you just popping up on panels, on whoever's stream. And then I felt I wasn't one of the cool kids because you like knew everybody and I didn't know anybody. And then you hung out with Danny or something in real life. And I remember I got super jealous. I was like, oh, I want to hang out with Rebekah in real life. And then subsequent to that, I found your channel. And so I liked and subscribed. And so I'm, essentially one of your fans and one of the random atheists from the comment section of your videos.
Cool. Thank you.
But also, also though, like, I want to say that like I'm a streamer and like a broadcaster. Like I love doing this. I love, living in studio and being live and streaming and making videos. But there is something to all the technical stuff that has to be dealt with. And I feel like a lot of guests and a lot of hosts and certainly a lot of other content creators, like their heads explode with the technical stuff. And you have been cool as a cucumber. Yeah. Rebekah's just been like, oh, by the way, your stream's not live. Not worried about the alerts going off, not fazed by the chat. And when it gets active, it's super fun, right? But it's also overwhelming. There's no way to respond to every question or respond to every comment, but you are there, multitasking. She's paying more attention to our comments than we are. You know what I mean? So I have a certain degree of respect for how good you are at this, you know what I mean? And it's like, I just want to give you props for that. And I also want to say that you're a lot of fun, right? Like we get along on these things, we go back and forth. And I remember even people reacted, because I was live streaming when you like booted me for going at Sal or whoever it was. And I was like, yeah, guys, this is what happens, but we do this all the time. I've put MyOneBlack Friend backstage for no reason. It's just part of the streaming culture. And I said that to people. She didn't kick me out of the studio. I didn't go anywhere. I was still there in the private chat, right? So Rebekah's cool. She knows how to deal with this. She knows how to handle herself. There's no beef between us, right? And I know you're a young earth creationist. I've always known that. And so even though I kind of reacted to finding your Examining Evolution channel, like how could she put this, I mean, what would I expect your content to be, right? So I recognize that was me being caught up in my feels. So it's all good. I've loved having you on. This has been so much fun. And MyOneBlack Friend, I'll turn it back over to you. I just wanted to acknowledge that and get that stuff out there.
Thank
definitely
you, Jay.
Before we're done, I want to get this young earth business. We got to have a talk about this, because in Genesis 1,
Okay.
there's some stuff you ought to know. I know there are a lot of questions in the chat, and I don't really look at the chat. So Pocket Locker, can you kind of bring forth those questions?
I'm starring some of them that we can come back to.
Okay, Rebekah, what should God be doing for people on earth? Or does God owe us something?
I don't think God owes anyone anything. So I don't think there's a what should he be doing. But I think God he loves people and he is doing things for people on earth.
Okay. If you became God tomorrow, like God says, Rebekah, I can't do this anymore. I've made a lake somewhere with awesome fishing, and I'm going there to be by myself. I want you to take over. Here's my chair. Here's my rod. Here's my staff and my other staff of angels. If you need something, just tell them, or you just do it yourself. It's up to you. But Earth is now your dominion, except for my fishing hole. That's on me. So what are some immediate changes you'd make?
Well, first of all, I'd be frightened for the world because I think it's probably in better hands with the creator than it would be with me. But if I was just in charge, I mean, I'd probably immediately kick Russia out of Ukraine. I'd make sure all the, people in Yemen had food to eat. I would, just probably bring down some lightning on a few people, maybe more than a few.
Wrath of Rebekah, too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Rebekah, can I say this? I've called out God on stream before as a gag. Like, you know, I do the pro wrestling thing, so I was cutting a promo on God, and I literally said, you know, if God wasn't such a punk, he'd strike me down, you know, right now. But honestly, if he live stream zapped a couple, you know, trash talking streamers like myself, I gotta give it to you. That would really send
I
a
wouldn't
message.
zap you, Jay. I wouldn't zap you. Wouldn't get
I'm just saying, I asked for it. I did ask for it. So if he just said, hey.
No, you wouldn't get lightning yet.
And God's a woman now, folks. It's time to mix it up in that prayer walk of yours.
Things are getting a whole lot pinker around here.
All right, so,
I don't like.
So
I don't
Iron
like.
Chair here asked a question. I think next we got to set something up. We're not big enough to take super chats, but we've got to figure out something so we can sort through some of these questions. How many times can a person commit adultery, and will they be forgiven every time if they repent and trust in Jesus? I'm gonna just say if you're a believer, yes. But go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah. As many times as you commit adultery, you can be forgiven. So you know how when Jesus came, when the disciples asked Jesus, how many times should we forgive people? Up to 7 times? Jesus said, no, not 7, 70 times 7, right? And so, and basically, I don't think it's limited to that.
Yeah.
I think it's basically he was giving them a keep on forgiving. Now, if he expects that from us, then how many times is he forgiving? Yeah. And so, you know, what the cross accomplished is complete forgiveness of all sin. So, you know, if you are a person who is trusting in Christ for salvation, you can be absolutely certain that your sins are forgiven no matter how many times.
Do you also think sin is relative? I used to think sin was relative, meaning that for a lot of people, smoking weed was a sin, because, you know, they just think that it's against God's will and God would want to punish them for it. So they thought it was missing the mark. Whereas for me, I sort of had an understanding where I didn't think God had a problem with me smoking weed. So for me, it wasn't. So in other words, like, some missing the mark could be relative. There wasn't necessarily one standard. God could say, I have this standard for my one black friend. I've got this other standard over here for Rebekah, and I've got this other standard over here for Jay. Or do you think there's just one standard for everybody in terms of behavior, I guess I'd say?
Well, I think there's an ideal.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that may, you know, God may be overlooking sins or like less than ideal. He's overlooking less than ideal situations for all of us, right? So
Right.
You know, so smoking weed, yeah, it may be different for some people. I mean, if somebody's like in pain and like, you know, the weed is like helping them medically or something, I don't think God would be against that. Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off.
I think, you know, God, there's an ideal, and there's no one that's living up to it in this lifetime. But there are some things that, you know, it's not a sin for some people and it is for others. So anyway, that was a long way of saying I agree with you.
Oh, cool. Also, this question by Scott, I think we already addressed, but I just want to say what a hot program it's been, because my one black friend always talks about this. Pine Creek always talks about this. The fact that, you know, Jesus says in the Bible, you will do greater things. And I just love the fact that you actually said you believe that it's real, and that's actually happening. And God has no obligation to do so to the satisfaction of scientists or YouTube viewers. So I'd go that far too.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll let you, my one black friend, I'll let you jump in, and I'll pull up some other questions.
If you had a time machine and you could travel back and meet Jesus and speak with him in a way where you understood each other perfectly, you know, it's not, you don't have trouble speaking Aramaic, he doesn't have trouble speaking English or something like that. Okay, you understand each other perfectly. What are some things you would sort of nudge him and say, make sure you tell the people this? Are there a few things you'd have him add in to make sure that the guy writing everything down also wrote your ideas down too? What would those things be? If
Well,
any.
I don't think I would add in, but I would probably take out.
Really?
Yeah. So, like, where Jesus is like, all right, you guys, before I told you not sword, but now if you have a sword, bring one. I think,
No.
do you know, this is what I would say. Jesus, like, probably don't say that. That's very confusing. And I don't know, like, people reading it 2,000 years later, we're not going to understand what you're talking about.
I did.
Oh, really?
Can I address
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So you'll notice before that moment, they were having Passover dinner. Part of the Passover ritual is for people to gird themselves. So they put on their weapons. Right?
Oh, really?
And when Jesus, yes. So when Jesus is saying, if you go back, I think it's in Deuteronomy, I will find it and I will get that to Pocketlocker to get it to you. So, but it's part of the ritual for Passover. So when he says, sell your cloak and buy a sword, what is he saying? He's saying you have to participate in what we just did, not fight these people that are out here to come and get me. I'm supposed to be, right? He's the lamb, right? He is the sacrifice. That's supposed to happen. It's compulsory, but you must participate in the Passover. That's what he's saying. When he's saying, hey, this is my body, it will be broken for you. That's more valuable. That experience, right? This wine represents my blood that will be spilled for you, right? He's saying, be a part of what we just did. That's what matters. These people are all part of the process. All this is part of the plan. I knew this was coming. Remember, he tells his disciples, I have to go to Jerusalem where I will be killed. The Son of Man will be killed.
I feel like I'm
Right?
interrupted.
So-
I feel like you two should get you two need to get a Bible. Are you seeing, Rebekah? He loves the Bible. He loves it. He loves it. He
yeah.
thinks it's so wonderful.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm wondering if I'm like suddenly in a different dimension because I feel like my one black friend is turned into a preacher.
I can do it with the best of them. That's not a joke. I can do it with the
Cool.
best of them. I can even sound like a few of them if I want to. But look, I'll get that for you in case you want to do a show on it. You want to teach and say, no, this is how this plays out. So I think once you see I actually had a question about the Old Testament for you, but once you see the Old Testament context, that story becomes alive in a new way. Okay. Now, what
Okay.
else you got? What is there anything else you tell them?
Oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because that's been one that has perplexed me for a long time. Okay, let me see what else. I'll have to get back to you on that. Let's go
Okay,
because
I'm happy
can
to
you
take
answer
questions
this-
from YouTube hosts and scholars. Bring them here.
Can you answer this quickly? Is there a possibility of getting a reaction video to thank you, God, from Tim?
I just wrote that
Minton?
down, so I'll look it up. I don't know that. I've never seen that video that I know of.
Okay, so here's another one, and I wanna ask this a slightly different way. It says, does Rebekah think the time she spends on us is worthwhile? Does she think her claims and stories are going to make a dent with non-believers? Before you answer that, I wanna put in a slightly different context, because a lot of people, a lot of the comments, I'm sure you've been reading them, are like challenging, like the let's challenge Rebekah questions, all right? And I myself, have said I kind of want to do that some other time because I want to get to know you. I have a rare opportunity to actually get to know somebody I talk to and interact with, and I think it's more productive to actually get to know them first. That way, when you have deeper conversations, you actually know what the person you're talking to actually thinks rather than making assumptions. But in general, I sort of want to ask it a different way, which is a lot of us really have admired you because you go into sort of the lion's den with the atheists, the non-believers, the scientists, whoever. And I think sometimes some of the frustration then comes from, well, all these people are talking to her and she's getting all this information, but she's not changing, right? She's not responding to it the way I want her to, right? So I think a more interesting question to me is, as a content creator, somebody who just has to get up and do this and got to feed the YouTube machine, as I say. How do you deal with that as a person of faith, recognizing, like, yeah, I want to make this content, I want to participate in this community, but at the same time, you have your right to your personal beliefs, your own boundaries, and your real life, and you don't owe anybody any sort of, reformation of your personal life based on your channel. But I just like to hear more about what it's like for you, rather than challenge you on particular content points, which I don't really care to do right now.
Yeah, and I love these questions. I love your question, and please keep this one up because I want to answer it too. So look, guys, if anyone has hope that I'm gonna stop believing in God or in Jesus Christ, just forget it. Like, never have that hope. Okay, I mean, it's just an absolute waste of time. But that's not to say that I haven't been influenced and grown as I've talked to people. So I feel like I've come to understand where other people are at more, and kind of become more empathetic toward people's situation with faith. And also, I've never been into philosophy, but I've kind of been dragged into it with this. I've learned a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not trying to say I'm like so good now or anything like that, but I mean, I've engaged in pretty serious conversations with people, and I feel like it has grown me as a person. But abandon hope of converting me away from Christ.
So much of what you said, I just want to say I completely agree with. Like, I feel like I've learned a ton from this community, right? Like, and about the same things. Like, I didn't know anything about philosophy till I started, consuming this content. I've learned a great deal from it. I could totally relate to your experience of kind of getting involved through the comment section and the live chats. I always say my origin story is that we're people from the comment section and the live chats. We're super chatters and all that type of thing. And also, to be honest, I feel like I'm willing to engage. Even when you started like talking your story and evangelizing, I just felt totally confident and fine with that. I was like, yeah, I want this to be a safe space for people to evangelize. You can come to Hot Program and you can evangelize all you want. And just like you, I feel like there's little to no chance of anyone ever converting me. Like, if I let people evangelize me and you think that that's going to somehow make me not an atheist, you should quit while you're ahead, right? So I feel the same way, and yeah, just wanted to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to answer Scott's question, does Rebekah think the time she spends on us is worthwhile? Does she think her claims and stories are going to make a dent? There have been times when I've some despair, okay? But in those times, God has spoken to me very clearly that this is what he wants me to do. So do I have hope do I believe the time is worthwhile? Yes, I do, because God has spoken clearly about it. I don't think God would waste time like that. So, and Jesus has made some promises to me about this. So, this endeavor. So I am praying that those promises may be fulfilled.
What are those promises?
Well, I don't know. Should I share this?
I would like to know. Inquiring minds.
I have to think about it, because sometimes, God tells you things and he doesn't, it's not for everyone to know. But yeah, I'll think about it, and maybe I'll talk to you guys about it at a future time if God gives me permission. James asks, does Rebekah think I'm more % critic or supporter of her work? I also wonder how I come across to other atheists on her channel. James, I think you're very supportive. But what I mean when I say that is I recognize that there are things that in my theology and things that you're critical of. However, I do feel like you have a decent, yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say decent, a good understanding, good mind, good philosophy. And so I feel like you've actually been a helper to me on some of these streams where I'm getting in the weeds and people are kind of going at me. And you've been kind of a voice that has said, wait a minute, I think, I'm hearing Rebekah clearly on this. I'm understanding her point. And so, like, I feel like you've kind of been a voice of reason at times when people aren't listening. So I definitely feel I feel support from you and not so much
Yeah,
criticism.
I love having James Apperson's support, and I feel the same way. James, sometimes I'm not as responsive as I should be on Facebook because I'm really bad at using Facebook, and I'm trying to get better. I'll actually get back to you after the show because I know he sent me a message that I need to reply to. But yeah, I think James is super awesome, and I really appreciate, like all the fans, I appreciate when people reach out to me off air. And hoping to have him on the show soon. And also say there's a lot of people in the community who I'm not quite sure what their beliefs are. And I kind of think that that's a good thing. And oftentimes I guess what somebody's beliefs are, and I'm wrong. And that's also a good thing. All right, my OneBlack Friend, back to you, my guy.
Wait, I wanted to answer a question that Cameron
please
asked
do,
in the
please
chat.
do.
Cameron,
Please
is it
do.
easier to evangelize to atheists or Muslims? By
Great question.
far, it is
Great
so
question.
much easier to evangelize to Muslims. Muslims, I feel like they have
Wow.
such I mean, of course there's a spectrum. I mean, there's people who are culturally Muslim, but they're not really, like, they call themselves Muslim, but they're not living it, just kind of like Christians. Then there's like Muslims who are very devoted. Then you have the Muslims who are extremely devoted, maybe a little bit dangerously devoted. But basically, in every respect, I would say no matter where they are on the spectrum, it's so much easier to talk to Muslims and to see them get saved. Like, so I feel like God, he has been revealing to himself to them, and it's easy to see them receive the revelation from Christ saved. So by far, and so yeah, I don't even know, have any like atheists on my channel been saved? I don't know. I mean, I feel like my channel, I've had some messages on the Bread of Life channel saying people got saved, but I don't know if they were like atheists. I don't think so. And then there was one person who got saved on a stream, so that was cool. But
Really?
I mean,
like live, like on a stream, like on air?
yeah, but they were not themselves on the stream. They were in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That's
so
still pretty awesome.
yeah. So, but definitely much easier. Muslims are a very good mission field. In fact, guys, I wrote a book about this. I wrote Bridges of Love and Understanding, how to bring the message of Jesus to Muslims and everyone else too. And like, this is my experience sharing the gospel with Muslims, but this book is really to convert Christians, because a lot of Christians think negatively about Muslims. And I want to show them Muslim faith is, I mean, of course, there's extremists, and I'm not talking about that, but Muslim faith is a positive force in the world in general. And again,
Okay.
again,
I'm
with it. I'm with it.
I'm impressed.
there are exceptions to that. Like, I mean, there of course are Muslims carrying out atrocities around the world, and I don't want to downplay that. But I'm just saying, 10 years of living in Muslim majority countries, being completely surrounded by Muslims, I have just grown such an appreciation and respect for Muslims. And some of them are so much more devoted to God than Christians. And so I just want Christians to understand who they're dealing with when, it's not the Muslims that they see on TV doing, the horrible things.
So I was going to ask you quickly about all right, so confession, I'm starting a bunch of YouTube channels, and the motivation's pretty simple. I like doing this, but at the same time, I don't want them to like overlap. Like, if me and Tux do something real crazy, I don't want that to reflect negatively on me and my OneBlack Friend, right? So it's nice to keep things. But I was wondering, like, for you, what was the motivation for starting your second channel? What has that experience been like, and how do you go about, any crossover between them, if you or not?
Oh, you mean examining evolution? I have 3
Yeah.
channels because I have Bread of Life.
I only knew about 2. See, I'm new to the game.
Well, you might not know this one because it's in Persian. So it's a
What?
Persian channel. It's a Bread of Life in Persian. So I do a Bread of
You
Life
speak
Persian.
Farsi?
Is
Yes.
this show not fire, y'all? Like, are you
Shatori.
not learning new things on this program
خوبم،
right
مرسی.
now?
حال شما چطوره؟ خوب هستی؟
What? Stop. Why is this
خوبم.
happening?
Oh, wow. Now
But
how
I don't
do
know a
you-
lot. That's all I know. That's all I know.
How did you learn that?
Khubam. That's all because I was working near a falafel place, and the woman there sold lots of Middle Eastern food, and I said, "Teach me how to say hello, please." And she was so nice enough that she would do that, and that's all I know. I know how to say hello in a few languages, So
Yeah.
but I never learned more than that because I was quite busy there.
The chat is impressed. Also, they're asking for links to your other channels. But yeah, talk about starting the other channels and what that's been like.
Yeah, so I actually started the Persian channel before I started the English channel. The Persian channel, you can find the link on my Bread of Life channel. If you scroll down to the bottom, it'll show my other channels, and so you can find the Persian one.
Okay.
And then Examining Evolution is also there, and I started that one because I have always been passionate about this topic of evolution because it was a major stumbling block for me when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And it was one of my big questions that I needed resolved. And so I know that many Christians believe in evolution and they reconcile that with the Bible. That's fine for them. But the reason I care about this topic is because I do think many people believe that we could come about by natural processes and develop into what we are by natural processes, and that keeps them from the knowledge of God. And so that's why this is an important topic to me, because I think everyone should know that God exists. And this is a huge lie that people have, swallowed, that we're all just here by natural processes. See, it all just happened. We all developed. And so that gives people, it makes it harder for people to find God. So that's why I care about it.
Okay.
But I know you're a huge believer in evolution, and you think I'm just being
full disclosure. I'm in practicing a professional evolutionary biologist. That's my job, and I teach and do research at a university. So literally my job. But go ahead.
I know, and I don't want to. I don't want to.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Rebekah,
since you can come on my Examining Evolution channel for an interview.
I was going to ask.
There you go.
If you'd let me do that. Yeah, if you let me do that, that'd be awesome. I'd be honored. I'd be honored.
And both of you
happy
guys
to.
are welcome. You're both welcome to come on Bread of Life for an interview.
I think that's what we really want to do. We want to come on Bread of Life and talk to you over there. That'd be great. Thank you so much. MyOneBlack Friend, go ahead.
Yes,
you were going to say stuff.
I'm available weekends, but not weekdays.
There we go.
Rebekah, in your Bible, can you open up to Genesis 1?
Sure.
And go to... We'll pick it up in the middle of something going on. Verse 17. Chapter 1, verse 17.
Yep.
And then read down to 25. 26 is, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. You can read 26 if you want to. 26 and 27, I think, go together. But it's not what I'm after. But you can read it if you want to. If you feel like it would just be the flow.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it. according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild creatures, and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." Is that where you wanted me to stop?
Yeah, that's good. So, and thank you for reading that. If we jump back up to 20, verse 20.
Okay.
All right, what verse are you guys in again? What chapter?
Genesis 1, verse 20 now. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." So, okay.
I love a good firmament reference. Sorry.
Yeah,
I love me some firmament.
I'm only here in Genesis because of Michael Heiser. This is not something that leaped out at me when I read it on my own. So this is saying scientists, well, Jay can really speak more intelligently on this topic than I can. But certainly in some ways, the ocean was a crucible, or is a crucible, for life on this planet. This is saying, God is saying, let the waters do it. Now, just after it says, and God made it, because God, the water is what? The waters are his mechanism, yes?
All right,
for creating this.
I'll be honest with you, and I'll let Rebekah take her shot at it. But my take on this is, when I was coming up, I went to Catholic school. And it's really important because it means I was taught by Jesuits. And they taught us a non-literal interpretation of the Bible. They taught us this is our creation myth. It ain't perfectly accurate. Matter of fact, it's borrowed from all of these other creation myths, from all these previous cultures. It's just like theirs, but there's some Jewish stuff in it. And so I had to be taught that there was a conflict between a lot of theist and evolution, because in Catholic school we were just taught this is natural history, this is theology. So for me, like, all of the, well, even if this was supposed to be God's evolution story, they got the order wrong, or this detail's wrong, or it could have never happened in this period of time, or whatever, I was always like shoulder shrug. And I wasn't shoulder shrug like because I'm an atheist. As a Christian, I was like shoulder shrug. Like, who cares? I was always on the side of like perfect message through imperfect vessels. The people who told the story obviously didn't know what they were talking about scientifically. And so it just didn't matter to me. And now, as an evolutionary biologist, it just doesn't matter to me, because one of the things we teach our students from a philosophy of science perspective is that evolution is just as atheistic as plumbing. It's just a scientific theory that we believe is supported by the evidence. You know, it's no less of a theory than gravity, but a theory nevertheless. And so it doesn't say anything about whether or not there isn't a God. And so it still could be the case that God is real, and he just did it through what looks like evolution, and he's either playing a trick on us, or he just hasn't revealed all of the real story to us, or whatever. Like, that's all very possible, and as an evolutionary biologist, I would be remiss if I said otherwise. So it's still like a shoulder shrug, but it's an interesting conversation because of the theology and people's perspective. So I want to hear Rebekah's perspective, but I just wanted to be honest that there's not a lot at stake for me other than the conversation itself.
And, you know, I understand that perspective. And that's that's why I said, I don't care what Christians think about evolution. If Christians believe in evolution, fine. I don't even touch that. Like, I don't want to talk to Christians about evolution. the reason I care about it is because not everyone is like you. Not everyone is shoulder shrug, and I wasn't.
Right.
Because now I'm being taught, at home that, this creation story, and I'm being taught at school this story of evolution, and I'm going, these stories don't match up. Something's wrong with this. Like, this does not match up. And
so for you,
I
it's about
still feel that way. Look, I still feel that. I've heard all the explanation. Rob, I don't know if you guys know Rob from Apologetics and Michael Heiser. Yeah. So I've heard all of their little.
Yeah, and Erica, I think, right?
But I'm sorry. And look, if I really thought evolution, if I it was actually historically accurate and scientifically accurate, then maybe I would be able to find a way to reconcile it. So my problem with evolution started out as a faith problem, right? Like, it started out as a Bible and evolution. How do these work together, or is one wrong? But now my problem with evolution is scientific. Okay. So what I mean by that, and I have to separate my young earth creation from my disbelief in evolution. Okay. These are two different things.
Those are separate issues for you. Okay.
Those are separate issues because my young earth creation is very much part of my faith.
So I'm rooted
what
in
I'm
the Bible?
saying is I think there's some pretty good, there's evidence against young earth creation. I also think there's evidence for young earth creation, but at the same time, the reason I believe young earth creation is because of what I read in the Bible. Now, the reason I don't believe in evolution is because I don't think it is good science. And even if I wasn't a Christian, I would not believe in evolution.
Yeah.
So
and that's kind of my criticism.
How far it's come for me. Mm-hmm.
And we'll save the in-depth conversation for your channel, but that's kind of what I feel like on the other side. That's what I felt like with Taylor. When I said Taylor's trash and you didn't like that in the comment section, that was not meant to be Taylor's a trash human being. It was meant to be this is really bad science. And from my perspective, she's an awful scientist, right? And so I'm saying the same thing. You have a scientific critique. You don't think that the current consensus amongst evolutionary biologists is good science. So you think that reflects either deficiency of those scientists as the way they practice science or a deficiency of their scientific evidence, but you're saying you scientifically don't think it's up to snuff. The same way I'm thinking a Taylor is just, homegirl, this is not going to cut it, right? I definitely, I see that, and I think that that's nuance. There's a meaningful distinction there because a lot of people don't say that. They say because of the story in the Bible, right, the evidence has to correspond to that, and that makes it a very different confines that you're dealing with if that's what you buy. I've heard somebody tell me that it's a trick, right? Because they're committed to the Bible says it has to be this, and this is what people see, so God's playing a trick on us to test our faith. You're not committed to that. You're saying, I'm just getting young earth creationism from the Bible, and then over here, I don't think the evolutionary account is good enough, and so you don't have to have a dishonest God to reconcile the two. Right,
exactly. I mean, I think you articulated it well.
Thanks. I want to see if there's anything else you want to get to my MyOneBlack Friend before we wrap up. And I think, are we all on board for round 2 at some point?
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Yeah, this was fun. This was fun.
Yeah, this was great, guys.
And thanks for promoting this. And
yeah, we got to put her book up there too. On our next broadcast, we should begin, with her book.
Yeah, we could talk about the book.
Give her a little promo for her book.
Please,
yeah,
guys.
that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that.
I can send you my book on PDF, but I don't like reading online. If you send me your actual address, I'll send you a paperback of my book.
I'll buy it.
Yeah, we'll buy it.
I'll buy it.
We'd be happy to. We'd be happy to.
Thank
One
you.
of our YouTube buddies wrote a book, y'all.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Also, like, I just want to say you've been great, like I said, about the technical difficulties and everything. I appreciate the chat and the fans for bearing with us. Also, it speaks to the strength of Rebekah's community that they'll kind of hang in there and stick with us. And y'all, plot twist, Rebekah's a better streamer than I am. Seriously, she's just an ace. She is an ace at this. Experience matters. We're new to the game. We are trying to grow here and get some practice in, but you've been marvelous. Like, really,
Yes.
really, a lot of respect. I have a humble admiration for your ability to juggle all of the tasks and stay focused during a broadcast. It's really, really impressive. So go ahead, my OneBlack Friend. I'll let you close this out.
Sure, and thank you. This goes back in time a little bit in this broadcast. Have you ever, you mentioned talking about people and someone converting during one of your broadcasts. Have you ever personally baptized anyone? And if so, what was that experience like for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people I've baptized. It's definitely over 50. But I don't know the exact number. But yeah, it's a wonderful experience. But for me, the baptism is not as exciting as the moment I see the look in the eyes. Like the moment I see someone experience Christ and experience his salvation, for me, that is just priceless.
Yeah, so I have to speak to this again because a lot of
Okay.
people that are watching this weren't watching last week. But as a drummer in a church, I was playing at a church before COVID started. The only reason I'm not is because of COVID. It has nothing to do with my church. I love my church. Even as an atheist, I love the baptisms. I was always there for like the conferences and the retreats, but there was nothing like the baptism. In my church, we always did them in a huge house. It'd be like a big party. There'd be like 200 plus people there. And we would do it like in the garage, and we would dunk them in the water in the tub, and everybody's like around singing and doing the whole thing. And you got to understand that even as an atheist, it doesn't matter. The difference in your belief does not matter in that moment. You are a part of their church community,
Celebration.
and these are your friends. And this is a huge moment in their life. When they look back at their life, at the moments that were big, it's going to be like their wedding, their birth of their children, their college graduation, and when they got baptized. And their parents and their best friends come in from all over the world, and everybody's crying, and it is It's amazing. It is amazing. I'm trying to watch my mouth in front of the lady. It is amazing. It is so cool. And so I always tell people, if you don't understand, you're just not about that cult life. You just don't understand what it's like to be part of a community like this. So I'm going to speak to it. You don't have to be a believer. It's an awesome, awesome thing. And you're just happy for your friends. And if you're atheist and you have believers in your life, learn to celebrate those moments with them, because you can take your friendship to the next level if they say, oh, I can include you in my religious celebrations. I don't have to exclude you. You're not going to act weird. You get it. You can be a part of my life. And then maybe you have even more conversations with them, and you meet other people in their life as well. So I just wanted to put that in there. Rebekah, close this out. Tell us other stuff you want to plug, anything else you want to say, any other
please.
questions you want to address. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. You guys have been so gracious and wonderful. This has been really fun.
Appreciate that.
I do want to respond to something in the chat. YouTube Punk said, oh, is she allowed to do that as a woman? And then someone else responded and said only women are allowed to baptize. I mean, women are only allowed to baptize other women. Well, I've baptized many men, and it's not so. There are different traditions depending on your denomination or your religious, the branch of Christianity. Of course, if you're Catholic, then only the priest is going to be able to do that. But, within Protestant Christianity, there's a variety of perspectives. I am a part of, I just call myself a Christian, but basically I'm an ordained minister. But what my understanding of the Bible is that anyone who's a disciple of Christ can baptize anyone. And so you don't have to be a minister. You don't have to be a certain gender. If you're a disciple of Christ, you're called to make other disciples, and you're allowed to baptize anyone. And so there's absolutely nothing in the Bible that puts any restrictions on anyone, for, like Christians, like women or anything else, baptizing other Christians. I mean, baptizing people to become Christian. So just wanted to clarify that and say thank you guys for having me on. This is wonderful. And I want to set up a time to bring each one of you on individually. And I want to ask you,
awesome.
You know,
awesome.
your stories
awesome.
and your experience and stuff like that.
You just want my one black friend to talk trash about me behind my back.
No.
I see. I get it. I see what's going on.
What could I do to you? What could I do to you that you haven't done to yourself? So just leave it right there.
Wait. Also, can I get a little love? Oh, you guys can't see, man. I have on stained glass tights. That's all right. I'll show them off on my after party. Yeah. But they're pretty wonderful. Nobody has tights like me. So I guess real quickly I'll mention that this week I did something really crazy. I presented at an evolution conference to all of my colleagues and all the evolutionary biologists, and I went full purple haze with the outfit and the costume and the singing and the dancing, and they loved it. I then showed it to my lab mates, and my boss told me it was inspirational. He actually thanked me. It was crazy. It was pretty wild. So check out the Jay Bundy channel. You could see that video. The Cult of the Flying Man has officially invaded the world of professional science. Of course, you guys can follow me on Twitch, and all my socials are Pocketlocker86. I'll be going live probably about 6 o'clock for an after party. And then at 10 o'clock tonight, I'll be back on the Jay Bundy YouTube channel for live audiobook commentary for Christopher Hitchens. And that's about it for me. And with that, I guess I'll say be good to yourselves.
And each other.
All right, we'll see you later, guys. Poof.
See you later.